Welcome to this explainer. Today we're doing something absolutely fascinating. We're going to synthesize ancient philosophy with modern neurobiology to figure out what's really going on with your internal signals. We constantly hear the phrase, just trust your gut, right? Well, honestly, that advice is woefully incomplete. So today we're exploring how to actually transcend instinct. We're going to separate biological trauma and anxiety from genuine soul resonance and true spiritual intuition. Let's kick things off with a pretty brutal reality check. Have you ever talked yourself right out of something that you already knew to be true? Yeah, me too. Dr. Gabor Mate points out that most of us struggle with this massive gap between our deepest internal knowing and our actual actions. It's like we feel the truth, we totally acknowledge it, and then, well, we use our rational minds, social pressure, and just plain fear to quietly push it aside for a more comfortable interpretation. This perfectly captures an idea that humanity has literally wrestled with for thousands of years. Take this powerful image from the medieval poem Carmina Burana 16. It references Kairos, the ancient Greek god of the fleeting, opportune moment. This was an idea that actually evolved into a deep theological concept representing the exact appointed time for action. Now, in Greek mythology, Kairos was depicted with a tuft of hair only in the very front of his head, but completely bald in the back. Why? Because you literally have to grab the opportunity, the knowing, the exact moment it arrives. If you wait, if you let it pass you by while you overthink it, the moment is gone. There's nothing left to grab onto. So why do we constantly miss that forelock of Kairos? To get that, we need to look at the neurobiology of survival. Section 1. The biology of false alarms. To understand why we constantly miss those fleeting moments of intuition, we have to look at Dr. Dan Siegel's famous flipped lid hand model of the brain. When we experience toxic stress or trauma, our brain completely changes how it processes information. Imagine your prefrontal cortex. That's the part of the brain responsible for executive functioning and wise leadership as your fingers folding over your thumb. But underneath those fingers is the amygdala, your brain's alarm center. When a perceived threat hits, the amygdala acts on pure instinct. Fight, flight, or freeze. And it literally hijacks the prefrontal cortex. You flip your lid. You completely lose access to that calm, wise leadership, and your body goes straight into survival mode. Section 2. The science of neuroception and interoception. To really understand our physical reactions, we first have to look at something called neuroception. This is a term coined by neuroscientist Dr. Stephen Porges, and it's basically your brain's automatic, completely unconscious evaluation of safety or danger in your environment. It happens way before your thinking brain even gets involved. Now, this is incredibly useful if you're actually in physical danger, right? But it is deeply misleading when the perceived threat is just a ghost from past trauma, making you feel entirely unsafe in a perfectly neutral situation. Second, we have interoception. As Dr. Tracy Marks explains, this is your brain's ability to sense what's happening inside your own body. Stuff like your heart rate, your breathing, or that tight, fluttery feeling in your stomach. A part of your brain called the insula actually translates these physical sensations into what we call gut feelings. But here is the absolutely crucial point. Your brain uses predictive processing. It doesn't just read your stomach tension in a vacuum. It compares it to past templates, like past betrayals or past traumas, and then predicts what it thinks is happening right now. And that brings us to the core conflict. How on earth are we supposed to distinguish the frantic false alarm of past trauma from the deep, settled truth of genuine intuition? Section 3. Anxiety versus genuine intuition. Here's the absolute simplest, most powerful distinction we can draw pulling from both Dr. Marks and Dr. Mate. Anxiety yells, while genuine soul resonance whispers. Anxiety is urgent, it loops, it's diffuse, and it constantly generates these catastrophic what-if spirals in your head. It wants absolute certainty and it wants it right now. Genuine intuition, on the other hand, is calm, it's highly specific, it doesn't argue with itself. It carries this quality of settled certainty and it points to a very precise knowing, even if that knowing is super uncomfortable. When we break down the clinical difference between hypervigilance and intuition, the contrast is just stark. Hypervigilance is rooted in trauma. It's a past threat detection system that creates intense panic, a racing heartbeat, and this awful sense of impending doom. True intuition is entirely different. It's a present moment pattern recognition process that takes all your complex sensory data and integrates it into a really grounded, stable feeling. But hey, we also have to watch out for the exact opposite problem. Dr. Mate warns us to beware of wishful thinking. This happens when your mind deeply wants a particular outcome, so it generates feelings that actually mimic intuition to support it. You know, that specific warmth of believing an opportunity is perfect just because you really, really want it to be. The ultimate test here is honest examination. Wishful thinking totally dissolves when you critically examine it. Genuine intuition, it survives that examination. It's organized around what is true, not just what you want to be true. So once we understand the science behind these signals, we can't just be passive passengers anymore. We have to move from passively listening to our nervous system to actively auditing it. Section 4. Auditing your nervous system. Building a stable internal baseline is absolutely essential for this. Research highlighted by the University of Pennsylvania shows that improving your vagal tone, which is measured by your heart rate variability, or HRV, is the key here. People with high vagal tone show way greater self-regulation, fewer negative reactions to stress, and much better situational awareness. Basically, by using mindfulness and grounding practices, you calm that noisy trauma response down so you can actually hear the quiet whisper of your intuition. So how do we actually audit this in real time? Well, Dr. Tracy Marks offers this brilliant 4-step gut check protocol. First step, the tone check. Is the feeling you have calm and clear, or is it urgent and panicky? Second, body aftermath. Don't just track how you feel during an interaction, track how your body feels hours later. Are you totally drained or are you energized? Third, look at the evidence. You need to separate your observable facts from your anxious assumptions. And finally, the verifications test. Run a small, low-stakes test and just see if the feeling persists over time. Remember, verification isn't a lack of trust in yourself, it's discernment. And finally, we have to take these analytical tools and actually apply them. We have to shorten that gap between knowing something and acting on it. We have to seize our Kairos. Section 5. Seizing your Kairos. We really have to take these analytical tools and apply them to shorten the gap between knowing and acting. Dr. Gabor Mate outlines 3 demanding but totally transformative practices to help develop this intuitive strength. Step 1 is calibration. You have to keep a written, honest accounting of what you predicted versus what actually occurred, so you can clearly see when you confused anxiety with true knowing. Step 2 is physical literacy. Deliberately paying attention to where genuine intuition lives in your body versus where your anxiety lives. And step 3 is action. You have to start acting on small, low-stakes intuitive knowings before your rational mind has time to construct a massive case against it. And this brings us to what might just be the most powerful realization of this entire explainer. Dr. Mate states, the development of genuine intuition is not about feeling more, it is about overriding less. Let that sink in. Your instrument is already working. It's always been working. The problem isn't the instrument. The problem is that you've been trained by society and by past pain to require external validation before you'll ever trust your own internal perception. So I want to leave you with a final provocative thought. Think about a specific situation in your life right now, not 10 years ago, but currently. A situation where you have a deep, settled knowing, but you've been delaying, overthinking, and waiting for external evidence. Ask yourself this absolutely brutal question. What has overriding this knowing already cost you in time, in energy, and in peace? Stop overriding. Start following. Seize the moment before it passes. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.